Spit till I suffocate, very quick to agitate. Concentrate till I rate, I'm irate. In a state, my confidence is a trait. Success is my motherfucking fate.
In our lives, we can't help but get caught up in the hustle and bustle of society. These days, our attention is our currency, and you'll bet that everything around us is competing for it. It's present in all the adverts that we see, which invade our subconscious, building a soul rapport with us in order to make us want to buy a particular brand or invest in any idea. It's present in the endless amount of distractions in our world, from social media to radio to TV. In effect, on a day-to-day basis, we are being bombarded with information, new and sometimes old, sometimes repetitive information, leading us to think thoughts in response to these stimuli, and we become reflections of our environment. As a result, we are thinking all the time, and our mind is overthinking and ruminating of all different scenarios that could have happened in the past that we can't change. And also, we are thinking about the future and what potentially could happen, but very rarely do we pay actual attention to what really matters, and that is the present moment. The ideas of Buddhism revolve around the notion that all of our suffering and our pain comes from our cravings and our desire, the things that our minds are attached to. This could be anything, nostalgia for the past or an attachment to a particular outcome in our heads of what could happen in the future. And this is probably an outcome that we think will bring us some sort of happiness or some sort of joy or fulfillment. It could be a goal or a dream or anything that we replay in our minds over and over again, and something, if not materialized, can bring us a lot of pain and suffering. And this is where our suffering lies, in our perceptions.
Each of us lives dependent and bound by our individual knowledge and our awareness.
As a consequence of this obsessive thinking and attachment to outcome and ideas, it breeds multiple types of suffering, such as anxiety, stress, and just general pain. Detachment is letting go of outcomes, preconceived futures, and future realities. In a way, attachment is betting our future happiness and hopes on something that's external to us, something that isn't even really real. Something so external, in fact, that it's got nothing to do with the self. We have no control over it. We only have a degree of control over it. So this is betting our hopes and our happiness on something which may or may not even happen. Letting go is not minding what happens and being okay with any outcome, even if it's supposedly negative in our minds. It's a state of equanimity and not indifference. Thus, we are not negatively impacted as a result, and we don't have any emotional pain from it, because in reality the thing was never even ours to begin with. Simply put, we care way more than we need to. In this case, the answer is detachment, and Spike Spiegal from Cowboy Bebop embodies this way of life, and let's see what we can learn from him. One of the most well-known quotes from Spike Spiegal is,
"Oh well, whatever happens, happens."
And I think this summarizes his philosophy and way of life in a nutshell. Spike is usually pretty laid back and comedic and even sarcastic during his fights where his life is at risk. He doesn't take life too seriously and really has the attitude of not caring that much, if at all, really. I mean, unless there's food involved.
There's no beef in here, so you wouldn't really call it bell peppers and beef, now would you?
Yes, I would.
Well, it's not!
It is when you're broke, alright?
He's pretty free-spirited, and this is even evident in his fighting style, a fighting style inspired by Bruce Lee, one which flows like water and has taken any form and adapting to any changes without any resistance at all. You put water into the cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Be water, my friend. In my eyes, this is pure detachment from outcome and a life devoted only to living in the present moment. Water is a great representation of Spike as a character, and especially during his time in Cowboy Bebop anyway, because in the past, he didn't have it so easy, so I assume that he kind of gained this mentality through all the pain, because typically enlightenment does come from pain and the cessation of suffering. Spike can be lazy at the best of times, and he is most definitely a flawed character, but he is exemplary of living in the now and just taking life as it comes. To some degree though, Spike can take it to the extreme and sometimes border on to sheer apathy even when the lives of others are involved, to the extent that sometimes he really doesn't care and To be honest, I still think that this doesn't really deviate from the philosophy, but this is a very extreme example of it. Living our lives with the whatever happens, happens mentality is a surefire way to live a more peaceful, happy, and stress-free life. Studies have shown that worry, stress, and anxiety not only make us feel uncomfortable and distressed in the moment, but in the long term it can lead to serious mental and physical repercussions, from stomach ulcers to heart attacks and even coronary heart disease. By living our lives detached from outcome and living only in the present moment like Spike does, holds an immeasurable amount of benefits, and least of all being inner peace. Meditation is a practice I partake in order to keep my thoughts in check and keep my mind from going adrift and attaching to outcomes which I might not even really want, but my mind has been conditioned to think that I want these things. The unconditioned mind is sort of the goal. Like Spike, you will be able to flow like water and minimize any pain or resistance. So when you find yourself getting distracted and mentally wandering off, try to bring yourself into what you are doing now and find peace via detachment like Spike Spiegal. I've been Sir Lance, and have a great day.
Season and I'm out for the kill. Adrenaline pumping through my veins, now I'm feeling the thrill. Call me Itachi, you won't see me. Tsukuyomi.